You had one thing to do today. Just one. You knew what it was when you woke up. You thought about it in the shower. You sat down at your desk, or your couch, or your kitchen table, and you opened whatever you needed to open, and then nothing. Not nothing like calm. Nothing like static. Like every direction your brain tried to move, something else was already there. Your phone, a sound from outside, the thought about the thing you forgot last week, the thought about the thought. And then an hour passed, and you hadn't moved, and the task was still sitting there, and you were just elsewhere. Nowhere. Somewhere that doesn't have a name. And the worst part isn't that it happened. The worst part is the thing you said to yourself after. It went something like, "What is wrong with me? Other people can just sit down and do things. Other people don't have to negotiate with themselves for 45 minutes to send one email. I'm 26 or 34 or 41 years old and I still cannot make myself do basic things. I am lazy, I am broken. I am wasting my life one paralyzed afternoon at a time." That belief. That exact sentence you say in your head with that exact tired tone. That's what I want to talk about today. Because there is a reason this keeps happening. Not a character reason. Not a willpower reason. A biological reason that almost nobody explains clearly, and once you understand it, everything you've been calling laziness starts to look like something completely different. If you've lived this specific loop, and you have your own version of what that inner paralysis feels like, I'd really love to hear it in the comments. Describe your version. What does the moment look like for you, right before you disappear on yourself? Those stories genuinely shape future videos. One of the next ones might be made specifically for what you share. But first, let's close this loop. Here is what is actually happening. Your nervous system has a threshold. Think of it like a volume knob, except it doesn't just measure sound. It measures everything at once. Sound, light, the ambient emotional texture of your day, social residue from a conversation that went slightly sideways, unfinished tasks sitting in working memory, the mild background hum of a notification you haven't answered. Everything gets processed together, and that processing has a cost. The concept is called sensory and cognitive load. That's the clinical language. But the plain language version is this: your brain is running too many programs at once, and it started shutting non-essential processes down to keep the system stable. Laziness, if it were real laziness, would feel like ease. It would feel like not wanting to do something and being comfortable with that. What you feel isn't ease, it's weight. It's a specific heaviness that comes from trying to move and finding that the signal isn't getting through the way it's supposed to. Think about a car with a spongy brake pedal. You press the pedal, but it doesn't respond the way it should. You press harder, and something happens, but not the thing you expected. You press again, and now you're not even sure the connection is there. That's not a driver problem. That's a hydraulics problem. Something between the intention and the action isn't transmitting cleanly. That's what overstimulation does to motivation. It doesn't eliminate the desire to do things. It degrades the signal between wanting and doing. And you've been interpreting that signal degradation as a fundamental flaw in who you are. It isn't. And this connects directly to something we've talked about on this channel before: your internal baseline. Your nervous system is always comparing incoming information against a predicted state of normal. When the gap between what you expected your day to feel like and what it actually feels like grows too large, your brain starts spending more of its resources on recalibrating rather than on output. That gap is called prediction error. And when prediction error is high for long enough, your system does what any overloaded processor does. It throttles. You feel it as fog, as flatness, as the inability to begin. Now let's go deeper into the mechanism, because understanding it at the surface level isn't enough. You need to feel exactly how this works inside your body. There's a structure in your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. You don't need to memorize that. What you need to know is that it's the part of your brain that handles task switching, error detection, and the initiation of effort. It's the part that takes the intention to do something and turns it into the first physical action. Under normal conditions, this system works smoothly. Under chronic overstimulation, it's like a smoke alarm that's been going off for so long the battery is running out. It's still trying to do its job. It's still detecting things, flagging things, trying to tell you something needs attention. But the signal is weak and distorted and keeps triggering at the wrong moments. You'll notice the alarm, you'll try to act on it, and then it'll stop before you can figure out what it was pointing at. That's why you'll sometimes suddenly feel a burst of energy to do something random. Clean one corner of your room, Reorganize your phone apps. Watch a video about a topic you've never once cared about. Your alarm fired, you responded to it, but it fired at something minor because the major signal was too degraded to read clearly. And here's the loop, lived from the inside. You wake up. Already there's input. Light, temperature, the first notification, the weight of whatever didn't get done yesterday. Your baseline prediction was rest. What you got was immediate processing demand. Small prediction error. System notes it. You move through your morning. Each small decision adds a little load. What to eat, what to wear, whether to respond to that message or not, the sound of something outside, the news in the background, even if you're not watching it. Each one is small. Together they compound. You arrive at the task, the thing you need to do, and the signal tries to fire. But the system is already running close to capacity, so the signal doesn't get the clean channel it needs. You feel something blunt where motivation should be sharp. You pivot to something easier to give the signal somewhere to go. The easier thing doesn't satisfy anything. It adds a new layer of self-judgment. Now the system is processing both the unfinished task and the emotional cost of avoiding it. The load goes up. The signal gets worse. The avoidance increases. You've lived this loop. You probably ran it today. And the entire time, the story you were telling yourself was that this was about your character, your discipline, your fundamental wiring as a person who cannot follow through. But look at the actual sequence. There was nothing in that loop that required a character flaw to explain it. It was a hydraulics problem. The brake pedal going spungy. The smoke alarm forgetting what it was pointing at. The vicious cycle isn't a moral failure. It's a mechanical one. But here is what nobody ever tells you. Every piece of advice you've received about this, the timers and the schedules and the accountability and the motivational content you consume at 1 a.m., none of it worked because it was aimed at a different problem. It was aimed at a motivation problem, at a discipline problem, at a you problem. And you tried all of it. You tried it seriously. You made the charts, set the alarms, told yourself this week would be different. And when it wasn't, you took that failure as more evidence of your fundamental deficiency. But you were trying to fix the driver when the hydraulics were broken. You cannot willpower your way through a degraded nervous system signal. You cannot discipline your body into calm. You cannot motivate yourself out of an overload state using more stimulation. Every conventional approach to productivity assumes that the brake pedal is fine, and you just need to press harder. Your brake pedal isn't fine, and that is not your fault. So let's talk about what actually works, not information, tools. Specific, usable, keep on your phone tools. And there are 4 of them. The first one I want you to write down, or screenshot, or save. I'm calling it the Drain Audit. The problem it solves is invisible load. Half the weight you're carrying on any given afternoon is input you absorbed but never consciously registered. Noise, emotional residue, decision fatigue from things that felt trivial. Here's the action. Open your Notes app. Write the date. Then list, in whatever order they come, every single thing that happened today that required your brain to process something. Not just tasks, interactions, things you heard, things you noticed, emails you read even if you didn't respond, news you absorbed, conversations, weather, sounds. Give yourself 5 minutes. Just list. Then look at the list. Most people, when they do this for the first time, feel something shift immediately. Not because anything is fixed. Because for the first time, the load is visible. What was ambient and invisible is now concrete and finite. Your brain stops trying to hold all of it in working memory at once and can recognize that the weight is real. The problem with invisible load is that your brain experiences it as a personal quality, like heaviness that belongs to you. The Drain Audit makes it external. Externalizing load is one of the fastest ways to reduce what the anterior cingulate has to process before it can initiate. You'll feel slightly more like yourself just from the list existing. The second tool is called the permission sentence. The problem it solves is the judgment loop. The part of overstimulation that makes itself worst is not the original overload. It's the layer of self-criticism that runs on top of it. You were overloaded, and then you judged yourself for being overloaded, and then you were overloaded plus carrying shame, which is a significantly heavier state to begin anything from. The action is 1 sentence. Write it in your Notes app, or on paper, or just say it out loud. It goes like this: I'm not failing to do this. I'm running at capacity, and capacity is temporary. That's it. You're not pretending the task is done. You're not making peace with never doing it. You're removing the additional load of judgment from an already overloaded system. What this does physiologically is reduce threat signaling. When your brain interprets your own internal state as evidence of danger, it allocates resources towards self-protection rather than initiation. The self-critical voice isn't motivating you. It's competing with the signal you need to start. By naming your state accurately rather than judgmentally, you reduce the defensive processing that's crowding out task initiation. The brake pedal gets a little cleaner. The third tool is called the 1-degree shift. The problem it solves is the impossibility of beginning. When the signal is degraded, starting a task at full scale feels like moving a mountain with one hand. Your brain correctly computes that the available resources don't match the required effort and refuses to commit. This isn't irrationality. It's accurate resource accounting. The action is this: in your Notes app, write the smallest version of the task that still counts as moving, not starting the report. Writing the first sentence of the report, not cleaning the apartment, moving 3 things to where they belong. The version's so small it almost seems like it doesn't count. Then do only that. What you're doing neurologically is giving the initiation circuit a target it can actually reach. The anterior cingulate doesn't need the task to be finished to release more signal. It needs confirmation that action is possible. One real, completed micro action is confirmation. The system recalibrates. The next step becomes more accessible than the first one was. This is not a trick. The momentum you feel after one small action is a real biological event. The smoke alarm remembered what it was pointing at. Here I want to pause and say something honest. When you start using these tools, especially the Drain Audit, especially the permission sentence, there may be a few days where things feel harder before they feel better. Not because the tools aren't working, because what they're doing is asking your nervous system to process things it has been avoiding. Naming load, removing judgment, starting small, these actions bring your actual internal state into focus. And seeing clearly what you've been carrying can feel uncomfortable before it feels like relief. That discomfort is biological evidence the process is working. Your system is not getting worse. It's finally reading clearly. The smoke alarm is recalibrating. The brake pedal is being reconnected. Stay with the tools. The discomfort is the system doing exactly what you've been asking it to do for years. The fourth tool is called a sensory reset window. The problem it solves is the compounding load itself. The first 3 tools address how you relate to overstimulation once it's happened. This one interrupts the accumulation before it reaches the point of paralysis. The action is a single window of time between 5 and 15 minutes where you deliberately remove all input that isn't naturally occurring. No phone, no sound that someone else created, no screen. Outside if you can, but even a bathroom with the light off works. You're not meditating. You're not doing anything. You're giving your input channels a moment where they are not receiving signal. What this does is allow the anterior cingulate to run a kind of reset cycle. The nervous system is not designed for constant input. It's designed for rhythm. Input, then quiet. Demand, then recovery. When that rhythm is absent for long enough, the system moves into a sustained high, processing state that it doesn't know how to exit without help. The sensory reset window provides the cue it needs, not as a reward for finishing something. As a maintenance intervention, the hydraulics need to be bled sometimes. This is how you do that. Before we close, one honest thing. This video describes a pattern. It does not diagnose one. If what you experience is not just a few overstimulated afternoons, but a persistent daily, years-long inability to function that is genuinely disrupting your life and relationships, that is a different conversation. It may be ADHD. It may be anxiety. It may be burnout at a clinical level. It may be a combination of things that has a name your doctor knows better than I do. If the tools in this video help you, use them. If you try them genuinely and nothing shifts, or if the weight feels bigger than productivity and overstimulation, please talk to someone trained to assess it. There is no version of this where asking for professional help is a failure. There is only the version where you get more accurate information than any YouTube video can give you. That distinction is important to me. You deserve accurate information. And for the moment this pattern activates again, because it will, here is something you can say to yourself. Not an affirmation. Armor. My signal is degraded, not my character. I am not behind. I am overloaded. Overloaded is temporary. I do not need to earn my way back. I need to reduce the load. I can do one thing. One thing is enough to tell my system that action is possible. That's it. Read it once. Start the 1-degree shift. Here is what I want to leave you with. Not a summary, an image. There is a gate. You have been trying to push through it from the wrong side for years. Harder pushes. Better technique. More shame as fuel. The gate held. Not because you were too weak, because the gate wasn't built to open by force from that direction. Reducing load doesn't push the gate. It lets the tension out of the hinges. And slowly, not all at once, the gate begins to move. Next time, we're going to look at the opposite side of this. Because some of you don't freeze. Some of you never stop. You're always doing something, always filling space, always moving. And the exhaustion is just as real, just as old, and just as invisible. That's a different alarm, a different loop, and it has its own explanation. Same channel. I'll see you there.